Remember you said.
That's right. Wow. Yeah.
There's
I don't know why, it's just. No, because technically right now, they're having the same thing. Right. They let it expire. And now they put us have other things. The bottom sticker is a lax of a woman, so shall not be warm or the woman. So.
So that hinder the forum.
Yes. So basically reduces the quorum, like, so in this case, when the commissioners haven't
Forum is
reappointed.
recalculated on the new, I got you.
Right.
I got you.
Everything about it is different. And that might be the specific wording, or something along those lines. Everything is ready.
Oh, I don't know why this thing don't have a on the soul.
They're on like, it is, they're like flickering for some reason, which I don't know why, but as long as they stay on, I'm not gonna, as soon as I touch something, you know. It's very annoying. He's got it. Everything is ready. Sorry. All right, are you ready to start? Yep. All right, let's go. Good afternoon. Let's call today's board of trustees meeting to order at 4 p.m. Shirley, if you could please call the roll.
Bukowski,
Present.
McNamee. Present. Pismo,
Present.
Sheets,
Here.
Swanson.
Present. Thank you. If we could please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. McNamee, would you be able to read the mission statement today?
Laketran is committed. Can you hear me? Laketran is committed to providing quality public transportation services to all Laketran residents, with special emphasis on meeting the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities.
Thank you very much. Are there any public comments in the room today? Seeing none. Is there a motion to approve the Laketran Board of Trustees board meeting minutes of March 18th, 2024? So, motion made by Mr. Swanson, is there a second? Seconded by Ms. McNamee. Shirley, if you could please call the roll.
McNamee,
Yes.
Pismo,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Swanson.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. And then I will now turn the meeting over to Ben for the first agenda item, which is the discussion of the sidewalk grant program follow-up. Hey, Brian, so this is relatively quick. I do have all of the slides from our March meeting in case anyone wanted to refresh them in any way. But just to remind everyone where we left off was board charge being going to get feedback from the city managers, township managers, et cetera. So I attended a Lake County mayors and managers meeting on April 22nd, presented our general concept to them and asked for their feedback. They did not have a significant amount of feedback. It was received generally positively. There was one person who mentioned a concern about, not all residents are in favor of sidewalks and how we can handle that. I said, well, that's part of why our vision is that the cities will handle the planning and the implementation, so that they would deal with the residents directly, not us. And that was the mayor of Lakeland, so it's a pretty small community. The only real significant piece of feedback that they had was from the West End mayors. I wrote it here in red. They said, hey, we like this idea, this is great, but we really don't have places that sidewalks aren't there. We have places where sidewalks need maintenance. And so, you know, they said, would you consider, repair and replacement of sidewalks? And I said, you know, we're in a fact finding phase, no decisions have been made, but I'll happily take that feedback, back to our board. But, you know, the feedback, especially from some of the communities that would see more direct benefit was pretty positive. Mentor and out east along, I got a call from Madison Township Administrator, I got a call actually from the mayor of Grand River, which I don't actually think they qualify. But the feedback was positive. They really didn't have any technical concerns or feedback with the approach. They said, you know, they understood that it was a lot like another grant program. That's frustrating ones. That they understood it was a lot like another grant program from another place. So they understood the general specifics of it. One of the things that they talked about, they didn't really, I don't think this is a strong suggestion, but it's something we may consider, which is, if we wanted to allow them to do repairs, if they could come in and explain to us how that made a meaningful impact to our riders and the citizens, then maybe something to be considered. So that's essentially the feedback that I got from them. I did, update the schedule, if it's something the board wishes to move forward with it. Again, there's no pressure, no reason the board has to make a decision today or later or anything like that. But I thought it would be good just so you could kind of see a general timeline if you wanted us to do, more research or anything else together or really anything. So from here, we're kind of at a point where we can try to move forward, we can wait, I'm happy to get more data if the board would like it or anything like that, but, it's pretty much where we're at right now.
Are you looking for feedback?
Repair and rebuild.
They,
How does that impact the requirement for the ADA?
if they have a sidewalk that's out of compliance, any construction would require it to be put into compliance. So there is a possibility that it would assist with that. I don't know.
What I'm thinking is, in some instances, go with the language of the ADA, unless you're just gonna apply it to the project because they want to, which I think is technically possible. In some instances, what the ADA basically says, that if it's new construction, you have to follow the regs. If there's not a significant change, you don't. The map isn't like architectural things, so I'm not sure about this, I have a look.
In this case, if we were to do any work, the standard in the industry is that if you're doing any work to a sidewalk, you're bringing it up to ADA compliance. So if the board said, hey, we like this program, we want to move forward with it, and we want to consider reconstruction or repairs, then it would, our requirement along with the law's requirement would be to bring it up to ADA standards.
That would only make sense. The other thing I'm wondering is why are they suggesting to do a repair?
Why would they suggest it?
Yeah, why would they pull up their thought process, you know?
I mean, I imagine, they didn't specifically tell me, but I imagine we'd have someone else pay for something they would normally have to. Then they are technically right now responsible, or in some cases, the residents are responsible, like it will be, rather than you as a resident are responsible to keep your sidewalk in good condition. And so, but if you don't, if something happens, the city takes over.
So is it your thought process that you would do it whether or not the city or homeowner was responsible?
Our original concept was that we would only be building new sidewalk. This was when the board asked me to bring feedback back, that's what the West End mayors made a comment that they didn't have a need for new sidewalk. They would like the program if we were allowed to repair it. So that was not part of our original concept, but again, since we are fundamentally creating the rules, if the board felt strongly, well, one, if the board wanted to do this project, that's one thing. But then the board could say, hey, maybe we agree with the mayors, we should repair sidewalk, or they could say, no, we are just committed to new sidewalk. That's
whole decision for the board.
Okay, yeah. But if we agree to do repairs, right, the West End mayors, then we're gonna have to apply throughout the county, right? Is it consistent and fair?
The criteria would be open to anyone who applied. So whether there was a sidewalk repair to be done in Madison or Wickliffe, it would be an eligible expense. And so if the project was ranked number one, it wouldn't matter if it was in the west end or the east end. I guess the board could say, we're only gonna repair sidewalks on the west end. I wouldn't recommend that. I would think you should make it countywide.
Yeah, I'm sure, I want exactly the question. If, let me frame it a different way. If we decide to include repairs, is that going to increase Laketran's responsibility of the work that you potentially will be taking on? That there will be a lot of new sidewalks, but then a whole bunch more that are just gonna look repaired.
So I think the answer is yes. So if we decided to allow repairs, the possible number of eligible projects would be greater.
Which will increase the amount of money we're trying to put in.
Well, no, because the board would be deciding how much money they decide to put in a period. I mean, I guess you could choose to have two programs with two funding amounts, but we envision that you would pick one pot of money and we would rank the projects. And it would just be whatever projects are the best based on the criteria created are the ones that get funded. And our original vision was that it wouldn't involve repairs, but maybe there's a scenario where repairs would get ranked highly depending on the condition of the sidewalk, if the board felt that was something that this project should address.
I, generally in favor. I like the idea, obviously, of capping it. None of us, I think, want to walk into a free-form, spend it all kind of a deal. I'm a little hesitant about the repair, and yet I can also see where, I mean, this is about safety, in my mind. It's about creating a safer environment for our riders. So I can see where some repairs might be appropriate, but I think the garden variety repair, how do you define one versus the other? I think that's the tension in this thing, but I don't think we should be fixing cracks in someone's sidewalk. I don't think any of us would want to get caught up in that.
I agree.
But I think if a sidewalk has shattered near a bus shelter or bus stop, that might be a different story. So, my own view is I think we ought to be a little bit open-minded to it, but there's gotta be some lines drawn.
One of the ways we thought we could handle it if we wanted to would be to assign, so typically when you do this, you assign point values to criteria. And so we could say that, you get, your goal is to get as many points as possible out of 100. If it's a new sidewalk, it's worth 50 points. If it's a repair, it's worth 30. And so you're still prioritizing new, but if there's someone who comes to you with a really compelling reason to do a repair, you would have the option. And at the end of the day, even if you score them, it really still lies with the board to make the decision. So if we brought you scoring lists and maybe there was a repair in the middle and we said, hey, this didn't score well, but it really is a compelling project, maybe we want to consider funding it, you have your funding, you have that option.
Well, so that actually raises an interesting question that I hadn't thought about, and that is, where does the $25,000 spending limit come into play here? Does it not come into play? If we authorize, say, $1 million a year, I think is what we were talking about. Are we saying at that point, good to go, $1 million, spend it where you need to spend it? Or if we get to, this one's $12,000, you make that decision. This one could be $40,000, the board has to look at it. But, I'm not sure, I hadn't focused on that, but I think that's something we ought to talk about.
Our vision was that the board would say, for 2025, we want to allocate, say, $1 million. That's our budget for this program. So when we put the application out to the community, we would say the total available funds is $1 million. They would apply for the funds, we would rank the funds, we would bring back an itemized project list to the board for approval. Even if a project was under Ben's spending authority, what would ultimately be happening is be entering into agreements with cities. And we want all of those brought before the board, so you would be able to approve, disapprove, adjust them as you wanted, but you would functionally be approving every project.
So you see this as being sort of an annual, I mean, one judging criteria, say January 1, and then again, the next January 1 for the next year. So
Potentially,
nobody's gonna come in the middle of July and say, hey, we got a project.
no, we would envision this being, there's a period of time when the application is open, and we accept applications. We would finish that process, it would not be sort of a revolving door all year long, like there's $1 million to spend kind of thing. This would be a, for lack of a better term, a one and done. Whether we wanted to make it annual or not is something the board could decide. We could do it this one time, see how it goes and say, hey, look, once was enough, we're done. Or we could say, hey, look, we're gonna make this an annual project and do it in the future. This is a very open-ended kind of thing, but I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would definitely envision the board seeing every single project, being aware of what they were, and then ultimately having the final say in funded or not funded. It wouldn't be a staff decision.
Would we be ranking them like, kind of like we did with the building committee?
Probably what would happen to make it easier is we would do an initial ranking, we would present it to the board, and then you would have the authority to move around, accept what we had, say, hey, this one's, that's kind of what it typically happens with the LACA staff ranks it. The board can accept the ranking or change it or do whatever they want. The board say, tell them all of it, if you don't like any of these projects, we're not doing it.
I would support, if we decide to go forward at all, I would support an annual decision to fund the coming year, rather than just saying, we're gonna do this every year.
Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
one too.
I would think as part of the budget process, you would say, we wanna put X number of dollars into this program this year, and that number is infinitely variable. You could say $20, you could say 10 million.
Overall, I like the concept. I am very cautious on the repair aspect that we're just shifting, burden onto ourselves on repairs. I'm much more excited about doing new projects personally. That doesn't mean that some repairs though aren't warranted, should it, make it difficult for someone to access, transit stop. Thinking about it out loud, I would almost start with a smaller amount than $1 million. $1 sounds like a lot of sidewalk, I know from some of our discussions. $1 million doesn't buy much, you think advising contracting, but I'd almost rather, have spots fill out. I don't know, I just almost feel like I'd rather start small, knowing that it could be an annual item. And I don't know what the definition of starting small is, by the way. But I think it's exciting, and I think you did a great job on this so far. Other questions, comments for Ben?
Just one last one, would we, did you say you would define this, that the eligible participants would only be the townships and cities that?
They would need to be some form of municipal government in Lake County.
Okay, because, Mentor came through a couple years ago and made us all repair our sidewalks, and I can see all 55,000 Mentor people saying, hey, I need some money.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's ultimately taxpayer dollars and they would be managing the project, we really want them to stay under the same blanket of rules that we have, and so that keeps it that way.
Thank you.
Mr.
That is
Sheets?
mostly for the crowd area.
The criteria we developed would be that the sidewalk had to be along a fixed route, so it couldn't be like a sidewalk like down by Red's. There's no fixed route there, there's no, why would Laketran take that? So as of right now, the criteria are that it would need to be along a fixed route.
That makes some sense, if not only limits it, but it keeps open me on the road, infrastructure that somebody's going to pay for.
Mr. Sheets?
I can see no reason for spending 1 red cent of taxpayers' money that was put in the transit system on sidewalks that are the responsibility of the cities and, as you just said, the homeowners that have them in front. The only thing that I've noticed driving around Lake County that would irritate me as a transit provider would be where you put a bus stop like on Travel Boulevard in the middle of a grassy area next to a street that doesn't have sidewalks, and not gonna put $1 million behind sidewalks compared to 3 people that walk on once every 2 weeks. This is not anything Laketran even be involved in, so.
I think it's relevant because it affects and provides safety for the riders that do use the actual buses.
It's been that way for the last 4 years.
And it's been a problem for those years.
Has anybody had a problem with it? Has anybody complained? Has anybody said in the city that they've been, well, we had sidewalks, I use the bus more? I've already said my piece.
So yes, I'd be looking for a little bit of direction from the board if this is, if you'd like us to. The next steps would be to kind of, we go a couple different ways. We can decide, we've got another conversation on how much money is appropriate. We could publish a notice of funding opportunity, which would be to let the community know we're doing a grant program. We could do nothing. We could wait. There's a lot of sort of ways to go right now. And I just, we're at kind of the point where I would love some feedback.
I would think that, if we were going to be moving forward with publishing a notice of funding opportunities, that there would be formality wise, it'd probably be good for a vote of the board to show that there is support of that. The next step would be determining the amount that the board would allocate. Well, I think it all ties together, the amount that the board would allocate and, maybe review the exact criteria. So does it make sense for you to put that together?
Sure, we can draft a sample application with the criteria and provide that to the board for review. And then, at a future meeting, we can talk about how much money the board would like to spend. It's really,
Do you wanna, in your process of doing that, do you want to make a recommendation on what you think from your meeting with the mayors and whatnot, that you think is an appropriate amount?
yeah, we can do some more research. Our initial thought process was $1 million, which does sound like a lot. Construction is expensive. So it really comes down to how much of an impact the board wants to make, I think. And so you could, I think I wouldn't go lower than 500,000. Because you gotta think about, we potentially have lots of communities vying for this. So, it is our vision to do one project for $500,000 or to do 5 projects for $100,000. So there are some kind of decisions we can make inside of that, which drive that funding, number, I think.
Just out of curiosity, are there grant opportunities for us to get funding for this?
So, if a city envisions like a transit shelter and some, extra sort of transit specific stuff along the sidewalk, then yes. The money we get from federal, we have to spend 1% of our federal grant on what's called enhancements. So sidewalks can fall into that category, so shelters, benches, and something like that. So the ultimate answer is yes, but there's a little bit of a caveat. We have built some sidewalk before we usually have to keep it within a couple hundred feet of a bus stop. So immediately next to the bus stop, we use some grant dollars, sure. But for longer sections, we'll probably not be a idea. Sorry, that's a long answer. Yes. Don?
I'm not really sure, sorry for what you were saying about putting something out to the public. I would think before we put it out to the public, we really ought to have an idea how much money we're gonna put into the postal program.
Sure.
And also, give the public some idea what the criteria is going to be, including the top of that.
Sure.
Because if it's not real focused, you're gonna have all kinds of inquiries. Okay, I end up in disappointment.
I think what I'm hearing is that we will put together a draft application for the board to review that will include the criteria and sort of the paperwork that the city would have to fill out so the board can see exactly what questions we would be asking the authorities. And we'll also put you the second piece of paper that is the sort of grading sheet. So you can see how things would be ranked and then the board can change to move those weights around if they want. And then a recommendation for the total amount of money in a year one either.
I think that sounds like a great starting point.
Would it also make sense to distribute that to us prior to the meeting and get it back to you so that we can kind of compile our thoughts?
Sure, we will work on it. We have a lot of drafts done. We just need to kind of formalize them and send them out, but we will do our best to get those out as quick as possible. But it's also keep in mind that we're not under any time crunch either. So if we want to look at it next month and then wait, there's no issues with walk and slow.
Yeah, does this, I mean, I see on your schedule there, you have published notice of funding opportunities in June. Does this fit with your timeline, okay?
Yeah, this is just a sample for if something happened today. This is not a requirement. This is just how to outline the different steps that would be involved in the process before it's seen. Okay?
So these dates are not that.
Absolutely not, no.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Ben?
So at the mayor's and managers meeting, did they offer like potential ideas of what the project to them might look like?
A couple of them had ideas. One of the ones that came up was along Route 20 in the Madison area by Walmart. They said, you guys have a decent amount of ridership around the Walmart area, and we would love to make the pathway from the Walmart to Route 20 accessible, where it's not today. That was the one that I had the most sort of lengthy conversation about. The other one that came up that I actually don't think would be eligible for us is the mayor of Grand River wanted to put a sidewalk down Laketran Boulevard into Grand River, and there's no bus route there. So I told her, as of right now, that doesn't fit the criteria we're envisioning, but we're not done with the process, so I'll bring the feedback back. But and then of course the city manager said we would love to do this along, they mentioned Tyler Boulevard and Highsley specifically, so. And those would be some pretty high dollar, you're talking millions for projects like that, but they said we see the need, so. Yeah, but other than that, they didn't have any real specific projects they had claimed in vision.
I think, an interesting question for the application would maybe be, is the city willing to match any portion of the grant they would be providing? Because say that Mentor did want to do a project that was $1 million, but they were willing to have half the cost of skin in the game. That makes the project more appealing.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult with a grant application to get more points, the more money you bring to the table, so I think we would definitely envision that as a component.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments about it? Seeing none, let's move on to our first item on the agenda, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Matt for our financial presentation.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian. All right, so, operationally, we are on track. Everything is as expected. Through March year to date, slightly favorable in revenue overall, slightly favorable in expenses overall. That obviously creates a positive operating income versus the budget. Go to the next slide and break that down a little bit. One of the themes that we're going to see is that, in some later slides, is that the budget, in terms of the revenue and expenses, were budgeted evenly across all months, and that's not always reality. And I point out why I'm bringing that up here in the later slides. But that said, the revenue for Laketran, we experienced some increased fares, increased ridership. So we see favorability versus the budget there, slightly down the sales tax, slightly down federal and state, but pretty much as expected. So 50K ahead on the revenue year to date. Expenses, again, when I was talking to the wages and benefits, we're slightly off track there, but we had more operating days in the first quarter than you will in other quarters throughout the year. Evenly budgeting them creates a little bit of an uneven lineup versus the budget. But we made up for that in lower IT contracts throughout the year so far, lower fuel costs, in vehicle maintenance, and ads, meeting and dues contributed to favorable miscellaneous expenses. And those are kind of seasonal, so we'll see some of those pick back up again later in the year. Looking at our cash balance, remains very positive and strong across all three divisions.
somewhat misleading in that, given our projects, cash layouts for that, we give reimbursements that come later in the year. So for example, we received a $2.5 million reimbursement here in July. It's not reflected in that cash. So even though it remains very strong, we do see some up and downs, month over month, quarter over quarter. So that said, we've got 21 million of the 59, 50, or 60 million of Laketran, committed to the operating reserve, board approved projects, local share grant commitments. Uncommitted funds are 38 million. We project 7.5 million of that, capital plan, projection through 2028, and then almost 31 million in undesignated cash. And not a lot of volume in SDS. Again, I'm talking first the budget. It's evenly spread across all months, but that's not really the reality. We see SDS is very seasonal. The volume will pick up as the weather improves. But again, not a lot of volume so far. So a net loss year to date so far about 10K versus a budgeted 12K. Okay, breaking that down, again, you'll see the fares, are off compared to the budget, but again, we expect that to pick up in the more spring, summer months. Expenses pretty much on track to what we expect as well. We're running favorable, 24,000 versus, the budget. So again, contributing to the slightly favorable operating income compared to expectation. Moving on to Geauga, same thing. It's more prevalent here. So you'll see operating revenue is off by about $100,000. Again, that's not really reality. The reality is, well, let me go to the next slide. The operating expenses are on track as expected, slightly favorable, but as you can see, the fare revenue and federal and state are off the mark. And again, that's not really reality. We'll get a lot of that into the summer months, so we'll pull that more in line. Again, expenses are pretty much on track. You see some favorability there. Got lower contract services and fuel costs for Geauga as well. And again, wages and benefits are slightly unfavorable due to some accrued sick time, but that will even out over the course of the year as well. Any questions I can answer during that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve March 2024 Laketran SDS and Geauga Transit operating financial statements, subject to audit and capital plan review? Motion made by Mr. Sheets, is there a second? Second by Ms. McNamee. Sherry, if you could please call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Peasmo,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And then next, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Andrea.
All right. So, tonight I'll be talking about Laketran's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. This is a yearly, item that comes before the board. So every year, I update our safety plan with, new safety targets for the year. This is the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan is a requirement of Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations, which is all the transportation rules. Each safety plan has to include the items in red, so we have to develop a safety committee, and then the approval process of the plan has to go through the safety committee, our accountable executive, and then also now the board. There's various components of the safety plan, like our management policy, risk management, safety assurance, safety promotion. We have to have an employee reporting program, and we have to have our safety performance targets. So the safety performance targets for 2024 are listed here. A change, actually not a change from last year. We have, Jogga Transit listed here as well in the green. So just a note, I say this every year, but, the safety performance targets are based upon a rolling average of the years 2018 to 2022. So, and then a 2% reduction is applied. So we're in year 2024 and we're basing our recommendation, our safety targets based on, data that is as new as 2020. So just keep that in mind. But this is based upon data that we report to the National Transit Database. And then, Geogga's transit data is also from 2022, reflects the period before integration with Laketran. The whole plan, it's like a 40-page document, is uploaded in Govenda for your review. If you need some bedtime reading. Just kind of mix it up. We thought we would show how Laketran is, how our safety targets compare to other transit agencies in the region, so NOACA. Also, we report all of our safety targets to NOACA, along with the Medina County Public Transportation Agency and Greater Cleveland RTA. So, you know, there is the definitions for safety events and injuries are defined by what we report to the NTD, but there's some nuance in how each individual transit agency collects that information. And as you can see, RTA is just a much bigger beast in the region, so they've got you know, just kind of their targets on a different scale. But, Donna, yes,
Could you go back to that page?
this one or the other one?
Yeah. System reliability, how is that defined?
It is, miles between major, like, service calls on the road. So the number of service calls that, are made versus divided by the number of miles that the particular transit service,
Are you talking breakdowns?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
It can be, it's not limited to just a breakdown of the bus, it could be air conditioning, fare box, it can be a whole bunch of different things, it doesn't necessarily mean that like the bus had to be towed back.
Anything else?
Any other questions or comments?
So those numbers were generated from 18 to 22, right? So would COVID affect that at all? So it was based on actual numbers, right?
Yeah, so our, some of our miles were lower in 2020 and 2021 compared with, after COVID.
Okay. Or pre-COVID in this case, right?
Yes, that too.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-013 approving Laketran Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan in accordance with Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 673.
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. McNamee, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Peachum. Trudy, can you please call the roll?
McNamee,
Yes.
Eastman,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Swanton.
Yes, very excited about that.
Thank you, everyone. I will now turn the meeting over to Ben for a large dial ride bus acquisition.
Yeah, so this item is to purchase 26 replacement Valoride buses and a couple of expansion vehicles. So this is an extension of a contract we issued in 2022 We do a request for proposals for downright buses about every 5 years. And that includes a bunch of options, so this contract included 120 options. So this is a purchase off of that existing contract. I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong, it is 21 replacement buses and 5 expansion vehicles for same-day dial ride. So the replacement buses are funded at 80%, which is pretty typical for a dial ride bus replacement. The expansion buses are also grant funded, which is not normal. So when we talk about same-day dial ride, our original plans were the buses would be 100% locally funded. Andre was able to work with some different grants and find a way to fund about half of it, with federal grant dollars, which is great news. So the total amount of grant funds is 73.5%, which is pretty good when you consider there's a mixture of expansion vehicles in there. So the total purchase request we have tonight is $5,067,135. The vehicles being replaced, so these are called VT3s. We have a couple series of these. We actually were really excited for these vehicles when we got them. They look smaller, they are a little smaller, they have smaller engines, so we thought these would be a really great alternative to a regular power ride bus to reduce costs. Turns out that's not what happened. They have been very problematic. They leak from the roof more than the other buses. In general, the passengers do not like them. They ride rougher than the other buses, and the drivers also don't like them, so they are generally disliked. We have a couple people that like them, but generally these are disliked by customers and drivers alike. So we are phasing them out with our sort of traditional workhorse of a dial ride bus. These have been really good for us long term. Well liked by drivers and passengers. They are cheaper per mile than the VT3s. You can see these are about 36 cents a mile versus the VT3 being 42 cents. So not a small amount of savings there. They are propane. And the other benefit to these is that this bus has some restrictions as to what type of mobility device you can use when you ride this. If you have a really large mobility device, this bus cannot accommodate you. So we put you on a different bus. Whereas this bus can accommodate every single customer we ever have. So they give us a little more flexibility. But we always have been trying to sort of make the fleet as small as possible. And, I can say, well, this bus, we really had high hopes for this bus and thought it was great. It has not been what we wanted it to be. And so after learning, it's also not learning, but after studying it, and it's more expensive to maintain, it's just, this is a better vehicle. And so this is what we are recommending all of those replacement buses and expansion buses to be.
You mentioned, I missed it. What's the relative difference in cost, one versus the other?
So this bus is, I have the number, the bus that we're buying is $194,000. The other ones were roughly 170, I think. Can you remember?
Oh, that's fine. I was just curious.
Somewhere they are a little cheaper, because they're a little smaller, but it's not like a huge gravitational difference.
Okay, thank you.
They don't make the VT3 anymore.
That's also true, they stopped making, they had so many problems with warranty, they stopped making it. So, even if we wanted to buy it, it really just doesn't hit the mark for us.
How many do we have?
Right now, we have 16.
And how old are they?
They range in age, most of them are 17s and 19s, we have a couple 21s.
Now you're
It's
talking,
gonna take a while to get them out of her.
The 21s have a couple more years to go. They're only a 4-year bus, technically by usage, so,
That's better than 10.
yeah.
Get rid of them, throw it in license.
Yeah, Kim did not ask me all the time when we get rid of those.
Makes a lot of sense.
so you're talking about the VT3 and everything you just said.
I'm talking about getting rid of them, yes.
Okay, so there's still gonna be a couple out there for the next couple of years.
There will be a couple out there for another 2 years-ish.
Okay,
Part of it depends on how quickly these come, it's gonna take about a year to get a bus, so even if we order these now, these won't show up on the road until mid-25.
are you still going to have the small ones and stuff?
Yes.
And I was in over a new bus a few months back,
Oh, what's this?
a new bus.
Okay,
One of the new drivers took, it was VRR, But
Oh, yeah, coach equipment.
okay, is that what these buses are going to be?
This is the traditional, we have 60 of these right now. This is the traditional Laketran dial-ride bus.
Which is really the best thing they have on the.
It is the one that is preferred by customers and drivers alike, and it has the most flexibility for us. So yes, it is.
No, it's not a bus that I was. Really don't know that's just like test drive or.
We have 8 of those. Those are newer, so we are testing them. Again, our goal is always to find the smallest vehicle we can possibly run. So those are smaller. They're not a dual rear wheel, they're a single. Those ones are about $50,000 cheaper. So there are 8 of them in service right now in essentially a test program. So if they prove to be really great, then there may be more of them in the future, but not yet.
One more comment, well, I'm thinking of it. Some of these smaller buses, when passengers have packages, groceries or whatever, in smaller vehicles, there's no place to put it. And you end up with smashed groceries by the time you're home.
Smaller buses do present some challenges sometimes, yeah.
What worked the best, and I know you got the emergency door in the back, was the net that went across the back of the bus, there was room to spread out, you never had that kind of damage. And I realize this is a trivial thing, but not to the passengers who end up with those are great glass pancakes by the time they get home.
Sure.
So just wanted to mention that, well, everyone, staff included was present, but that is something that you can put that on a consideration list, that does this bus have like still packages? They're not loaded on the bus.
We will keep that in mind and see if there's a solution we can come up with.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Ben? Is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-014 authorizing the CEO or his designee to purchase 26 propane dial-ride buses from Petco at a cost not to exceed $5,015,114?
That's a different number than
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah, the correct number is the one on the screen. The other number, did not account for, radios and technology that we needed for the expansion vehicles.
No problem. Sorry about that. Well, like, Ron Burgundy and Anchor, that was on this. I'm gonna start over again. Motion to approve resolution 2024-014 authorizing the CEO or his designee to purchase 26 propane dial-ride buses from Petco at a cost not to exceed $5,067,135.
So,
Motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Swanton. Trudy, if you can please call the roll.
McNamee,
yes,
Peterson,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Ben, I'm gonna turn it over to you, which looks like, again, some more bus procurement. Another bus procurement.
Yep. This is very similar, it's just, expansion vehicles for the Yard Transit. We won the Ohio Workforce Mobility Partnership Grant, which allows the funds to do service in Giardia, and to do that, they need some expansion buses. And they are paid for at almost 100% by that grant, except for, $1,686. But it is the same, it's labeled differently, but it is the same bus that I just showed you the picture of, so it's off the same contract, same vehicle.
Okay, any comments or questions for Ben? Is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-015 authorizing the CEO or his designee to purchase 3 propane expansion vehicles from Petco at a cost not to exceed $573,186? Motion made by Mr. Sheets, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Swanson. Trudy, if you could please call the roll.
McNamee,
yes,
Peterson,
Yes.
Sheets.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
I will now turn the meeting over to Matt to talk about bus shelters, and I should say Matt in operations.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so tonight we are going to be talking about some improvements to the bus shelters at Eastlake Middle School. A group of parents, approached us in December of 2023, asking for improvements to the bus stops at Eastlake Middle School. Several students utilize the bus there. They take the Route 3, and they would like some amenities at the location. The middle school actually sits adjacent to a relatively busy intersection as well, Hillcrest and Lakeshore Boulevard. So improved bus stops would improve the safety for students as well. So we went through the process. The late Mayor Dennis Morley actually approved this process in December for the improvement. CT Consultants developed the site plans and the drawings. An invitation of bid was issued on April 3rd of 24, and bids were due on May 2nd of 24. 4 different bids were received. So here I have a picture of the location. There's some sidewalk that's going in as well as concrete pads for shelters. So the 4 bids that were received, Duggar Acquisitions was actually the lowest bid, but they did not have the correct bond, so they were deemed non-responsive. So going to the next lowest bid, that would be Lake County Landscape and Supply. So with a 10% contingency cost for construction, that brings the total project cost to $54,543.50. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, man, I disconnected there for a second. Did you say that there will be matching funds from the city on this, or not?
No, this is from our improvement group.
Any other questions, comments, from Matt? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-016 authorizing the CEO or his designee to enter into and execute a contract with Lake County Landscape and Supply for the construction of bus shelters at Eastlake Middle School at a cost not to exceed $54,543.50.
So,
Motion made by Mr. Sheets, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Piedmont. Jerry, can you please call the roll?
Can I ask, I'm sorry, can I ask one quick question? Or is that not allowed at this point?
It's been seconded, but you can go ahead.
Discussion time.
Yeah, it's more curious question than anything. How long are these shelters expected to be in service? I should have asked that in the middle, sorry.
They have a useful life of 15 years.
Thank you.
And most of ours have been up for much longer.
Thank you.
Once motion, a second citizen. Excellent. At this time, Trudy, could you please call the roll since we did that first and a second?
Anthony,
Yes.
Peaceville,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Swanson.
Okay, thank you everyone. And again, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to Mr. Hall for a 6-month look ahead combined with a CEO report.
Thank you very much, Brian. This June, we plan to have a federal grant authority on board. This is a routine item before every year, which asks you to give us authority to apply for federal grants. We'll have an organization chart update. This is a very minor update to do again with that geographic transit grant. This adds 1 full-time and 1 part-time dispatcher to geographic transit. We have an upgraded gasoline tank project, which is to replace our 4,000 gallon gasoline tank with a 15,000 gallon gasoline tank. A lot of this, the reason for this is, part of it is to be able to have better fuel reserves on site. And, being able to take an entire tanker of fuel does reduce our costs. And, ultimately, the payback period on this, and the board asked that at the last meeting, we prepared that document, and I immediately drawing blank on the number, but I think it was 6 years. So we'll have that on the agenda. We still currently have a plan of no meeting in July. In August, we have a contract for a bus inspector for the purchase that was just approved. When you buy a certain amount of vehicles, there's a number of vehicles, and a dollar threshold that kick in. You buy a number of vehicles above that, you get an in-plant inspector. So that is also, something we will be procuring here soon. We put it in August because we didn't want to be presumptuous with board approvals. We have moved the Geauga propane infrastructure phase 1. That was actually supposed to be on this month's agenda, but we put it out to bid with an estimate of $250,000. It was prepared by TT Consultants. The bids came in the mid 400s. So the estimates were pretty off from what we expected. So we are in the middle of kind of regrouping with what we, want to do with them. We are working with the state to see if they will supply some more funds to it. We're pretty confident we have some good alternatives, but certainly was a little frustrating that we were working off an estimate of $250,000 and it came in the mid forwards. But we're confident we'll have something, good to bring back to the board in August. We have new dispatch radios. So this is again, we talked about this for buses. We don't replace the radios in the building as often. Just because they don't take the same abuse, but due to the sunsetting that Motorola is doing with the radio systems, we will need to upgrade the radio systems in our dispatch office. This includes 4 workstations with connectivity for all vehicles in the fleet. And we will be buying that off, or like buying it off the state term contract. I do potentially see this being one of our last large radio purchases. We are working pretty heavily with Trustees and Trip Park and the people that provide the software on the tablets in the bus to be able to do voice over the tablet instead of the radio. The radios they're great, they work nice, they're very expensive. Their costs have more than doubled since COVID, and the expenses are just really high. We're looking at $230,000 for 4 workstations. And so while having radios is important, I don't know if we'll ever get away from them completely. But I would like to see us downsize the number of radios we have and start relying more on essentially the phone-based infrastructure that's in the bus also. Right now, we have a phone-based product and a radio-based product. Really, nowadays, phones are very reliable. So we're working on slowly transitioning that way. So I think this will probably be one of our last big radio purchases. The next one, we have some Geauga transit facility improvements. We had a number of small projects that we were working on how we were gonna kind of bring those to the board. We thought it would be easier for all of us if we bundled them together, so we'll give you a lot of a line item cost of what all those things are, understand, what different things are gonna be going to bid for, but it's things like they have some door replacements, they have some concrete repair, and all of these things are in the $25,000 to $50,000 range. So instead of bringing, 6 items to the board, we thought we would bundle them together. We don't have to do that, we just thought for efficiency, it would be easier for all of us to kind of digest. We'll bring those to the board in August. In September, we usually have our strategic planning retreat. I'd love to hear some feedback, not necessarily the second, but as you think about it, where did you like last year, or what can we improve on? Are there any specific topics we'd like to go over, anything that boards kind of think they'd like to have for that meeting. We don't currently have anything in October. In November, we will have the budget presentation. One of the other things that's happening specifically with Geauga Transit is they have informed us in the past, Geauga Transit worked off a calendar year budget just like us. The state now is not mandating it officially, but functionally mandating that we use a state budget or a state fiscal year instead of a calendar fiscal year. So in this year's budget process, we're gonna be asking for essentially a 6-month budget for Geauga, and then there'll be another budget approval process mid-25, so that we can get them onto the state fiscal year. So right now, the board generally approves budgets at the end of the year. Going forward, we'll be doing a budget approval mid-year for Geauga and a budget at the end of the year for Laketran. It's a little frustrating, but the state is the state. We also have our fuel contract in November. This is pretty much the same process you guys have seen us use multiple times, where we jointly procure fuel with other transit systems. And then in December, we will have the approval of the operating capital budgets. Any questions about things coming up in the next, couple months?
Yeah, this is one I should know, but I'll ask it anyway. Uh, the bid process you go out for, is that before or after a project is approved by the board?
99% of the time it is before the board has approved it,
Is that to get accurate numbers? Is that?
yes.
Okay.
Because by that time, we will know, if we do it before that, we won't know who the vendor is, and we won't know what the exact price is. So traditionally, what we've always done is we go through the process, then we're able to bring the exact dollar amount to the board with the exact vendor, and we know all the details by then. If you approve it beforehand, we might not have all of those details ready for you.
So those bidders all know that this is subject to, board approval when they come in?
Yes,
Okay.
we tell them, we usually as part of the schedule, tell them it's on this date for board approval. Nothing is written in stone until the board has approved it. Even if you're a low bidder, we don't issue a contract or anything like that until the board has taken action.
Thanks.
Sure.
We do, however, see in the capital improvement plan, the budget process, what is on the horizon for the project.
We do our best to list them all, yes, in the capital plan.
So it should come as no surprise that this thing is coming.
Most of the time, if we've been doing a good job, they should, yes, be in the capital plan. Sometimes like with the East Lake shelters, those weren't in the capital plan, those came up as a request of residents, and so then we kind of go through the process to make sure it's something we want to do, and then we bring it to the board to see if that's what you want.
So I just wanted to make sure they understood that when you bring something to bid, it's not totally cut the price. Most instances.
It shouldn't be, hopefully, hopefully it's also, part of the reason we do the 6 month look ahead is the same reason, so we're communicating what is coming up that we expect the board to be approving. And so like for the fuel tank, we have a pre-bid meeting tomorrow, or I'm sorry, on Wednesday, where we'll be meeting with bidders, talking about the project and stuff, so, but like, we've been talking about that project for a while, so we're just getting the process right now. I chose not this one, just kind of try it as a new format. I did not print or not copy and paste my entire CEO report into the PowerPoint. I just thought I would quickly go over some high notes. The HQ project is generally on schedule. We have a component of the project slip a little, which is the renovation next door. We did find some sort of significant water damage that has delayed the project a little bit. It does not delay the overall completion date, but it does delay that particular segment by about a month and a half. If anyone would like a tour, I'm happy to give one. The IT strategic plan is pretty much wrapped up. We have posted the last position internally, and we are working on the UKG HRIS program. Hiring, we've still been doing a lot of hiring. We have a very structured plan to be hiring this year. One of the things that it is important to know, we are struggling with right now is mechanics. We're doing quite a bit better than our peers on bus drivers. But we are in the boat with everybody, the mechanics are a difficult group to recruit, so, we are down about 5 folks out of 15, so it's a significant, shortage we are facing right now. Keith is making it work, but it is something that, we need to get some eyes in those slots, or it is gonna get a little bit concerning. 2 other exciting things we're working with, we have recently been contacted by both, Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals. They are both interested in contracting with us for immediate discharge services. So if you are single and don't have family and you go to the hospital right now, how do you get home, basically, is the problem they're trying to face. They both have expressed an inability to get Uber to respond in a timely fashion, so they asked us what we would do. So we are in the process of contracting with them for a relatively more expensive type of service, right around $35 a trip. So it would be essentially our fully allocated cost, and we would respond to them in a certain number of minutes to take a person home from those hospitals. So that's something exciting we're working on, which will be another nice revenue stream for us. Same thing, Dial is coming along. We are working on the scheduling software as we speak. Another project that we are kind of excited about with STS is to finally return some Sports Express service to Lake County. One of the things that we get asked still every day from 20 years ago is, do you provide service around games or eating games or things like that? We still are limited with our Laketran resources, that really can't do that, but SES can. So we are gonna try a trial program, this year for just round games. By selling seats in advance, that should also be good for SES revenue. And dip our toe back in the water and see how providing that service goes. That service comes up a lot when people ask. I have the grant tracker on here, but I'll bring up in a second. The last thing I have is, the sales tax suspension, is going to affect July 1st. We are, gonna be planning, unless the board objects to it, to send out a, reminder card to businesses. Since every business is responsible for making sure their own sales tax is correct, we thought it'd be important to notify them and say, hey, just a reminder, the tax rate is going down, our board reduce your sales tax, and please make sure your cash register reflects that so that people aren't overcharged. We thought it'd be a good way to also get the message out there to businesses that, our board is here looking after you. So, this is planned to go out in about a week, Julia.
It's gonna drop to home or businesses, June 10th. We can do it earlier, if that was, we're thinking like we would give them 2 weeks notice already. That's great.
Yes, Karen?
Some of your business owners, if you have a suggestion to go out earlier, we can make it go earlier.
Well, it doesn't impact our business because we don't sell locally, but, I'm just wondering if this is not the kind of thing that we might post in the newsletter, excuse me, to get out some sort of message to the general public.
Sure, we can absolutely do that.
I don't know where everybody reads anymore, but, it'd be nice to get sort of both sides of the spectrum.
And I'd rather do so, I only buy the front cover and the strip that goes above the banner or both, because I figure like if people at least are walking in at like gas stations, they might see the ad. Because it's got more eyes, I think, out in the community, or like if you're at the local library, I know they always have it on display, so that's generally where I would kind of want to do that, and we could definitely put something in the local. There's also, another little one, if you like Mentor Monitor, there's another kind of direct mail, it's pretty inexpensive that's where we put our hiring ads.
Well, I've been mildly impressed on how little, feedback we got on it.
We can definitely run some ads, especially in that mid-June timeframe, so people know, because having the general public aware, we can also make them check the vendors and make sure they reduce the sales tax. So,
That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, so we can easily do that.
They can rest assured the state of Ohio, make sure that small business understands tax increases, decreases. And they'll let you know it. Should follow what's going on. I've been doing that for 40+ years, and they're all over. State is the same. That's it.
And then this will be back, here too. Yeah, so our plan, again, unless the board, we want to show it to you in case you felt strongly you should do more out there. This should go out mid-June, and we'll also include those ads that we just talked about as part of this awareness campaign, so everybody understands, what important it is. And then these are the grant trackers, these are also in my report. It is kind of grant season, so there's quite a number of changes. I didn't really plan on going over them individually, but if anyone has any questions about any of them, I would be happy to answer them before I have Matt do the ridership report.
Are there, mechanic training programs like, Auburn Career Center? Is there something similar to that? I'm just wondering about the shortage. I mean, I know that on Tyler, Classic Chevy has Classic, I shouldn't just Chevy Classic, has some sort of a training center.
Yeah. Auburn does have, auto training classes. We've had multiple conversations with them about trying to form some kind of an apprentice program, or even, have their kids come here for half a day and do some learning. We've kind of tried a lot of stuff with them. The latest one would be to form a little more formal apprenticeship program when they would decide, hey, I want to go be a Laketran, essentially maintenance apprentice for about a half day, and our guys would have probably a small group of 3 to 4 people max. They would also be kind of teaching. And then the concept we hopefully we get to select from them when they graduate, like, hey, we're off in the jobs immediately. We haven't been successful with anything yet, but we have been sort of trying different areas.
I know there's I'll have to look it up for you. I know there's an organization, that's their mission.
Okay.
A national organization, the name escapes me. I'll see if I can track that down.
Sure, anything we can do, you know, we've been pounding the streets to try and find folks to do it. It's just a hard profession to hire right now.
We went on to Java's job fair twice, 12 to 15 people in their class all time at one application from either class.
Unless anyone has any other questions, I will turn it over to Matt for a quick ridership update.
Thank you, Pat. So tonight we're going to be going over February and March of 24. So, February, Dial-A-Ride saw a 18% increase. Local routes saw a 24% increase, and Park and Ride saw a 31% increase. I do want to mention something about March of 2024. It actually had two less operating weekdays than March of 2023. So those numbers are a little bit strange because, you know, looking at, you know, February to March, what happened, right? So March of 24, as it sits, Dial-A-Ride ridership decreased by 1%, but adjusting for those two lost days, Dial-A-Ride would be up 7%. Local routes increased by 16%, adjusting for those days, it would be up 23%. And Park and Ride decreased by 0.5%, but adjusting, it would be up 9%. Additionally, I did put the extended hours into a graph as requested. So as you can see, the AM and PM hours, or the ridership for Dial-A-Ride is going up. Obviously, PM is not as affected as AM. AM has quite a bit more demand. And then the ridership by mode graph, just kind of outlining where we've been, and denials by week. Denials have remained low, and we aim to keep them that way. That's all I have.
Any questions for Matt or Ben? Okay, is there any old business in the room today? Is there any new business in the room today? Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Ms. McNamee, is there a second? Second by Mr. Swanson, sure, you can please call the roll.
McNamee,
Yes.
Eastmo,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Swanson.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, and let's commend Ben for his personal best today.